ship from Portugal. So that's a pretty buzzy story. And actually died also on a merchant and fell overboard. Which in merchant navy and navy often means something else happened, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's his name was Rufino Gonçalves.
Gonzalez.
Dark skin. So we come from dark stock.
Very dark stock.
Like African roots, only that far back. And so we've got this real interesting history on that side of the family that I think we both want to connect with. And I think that would be an awesome trip to do together, right?
For sure.
To go back to Cape Verde. Who knows what's there? Probably nothing.
Yeah.
But just to, like I said with Portugal, just to know, like you're standing on the ground that your ancestors.
Dude, I know why.
Yeah, bro. Hard. Powerful.
Whakapapa, just like connecting to your history is like so important, I think. And it was something that I always wanted to do while Papa was alive, but I think like paying tribute to the man that he was, it's even more important now, like connecting with our past and where we're from. And I guess on the topic that we're reflecting back on things that we've been through, when I think back to who I was back then, I was very disconnected to my past. I was disconnected from even the people directly next to me. And I think that's why connection or connectedness is a core value of like Good Vibes Only, because without it, you're nothing. If you're disconnected from people around you, from nature, from your past, from all these things, then there's no foundation for you to move forward and for you to live and for you to flourish. So
yeah, hard. And that's why I think Te Whare Tapawhai is so powerful, and any other model that gives you simple reference points to build a foundation to move forward from. Because when you're in the pits, you're in your own space. You're in survival mode, right? Yeah. So you're just trying to make it through the next day, whether that be through masking or whatever behavior pattern that allows you to get through that just to survive. Your radar is not aligned with how can I take better care of myself, what can I do for self-care. So to put a health model, a wellness model in terms of that hauora into something as simple as 4 key areas that you can start to chip away at, and the simplest little things like we're doing with this challenge. Gratitude every day, which literally, this is the science behind it, and we haven't really talked about it with our group yet, but we have another 2 weeks to talk about it, is this idea of gratitude and connecting with that practice every day. What it does is our brain there's plasticity in our brain, neuroplasticity. We can create new neural connections within our brain. And what we start to fire by connecting with gratitude is these more positive pathways, neural pathways in our brain. And when you are constantly thinking of positive thoughts, what happens? That internal dialogue or internal monologue, whatever you want to call it, that voice within your head, rather than beating you up and talking negatively, starts to frame things in a positive way. Even if it's a challenge or a difficulty in your life, it starts to turn it from that negative to how can I learn from this? There's a lesson in this, and it's such a hugely powerful and transformative thing to connect with, because especially when you're doing it every day and starting your day with that, it just sets the right tone.
100%.
And neuroplasticity, that's what it is, creating new neural connection.
It's beautiful, and I think well-being and hauora and all this stuff in general is simple. It's set out for us to be simple, but that doesn't mean it's fucking easy. Like, it's so hard. And obviously we've all experienced our ups and our downs and our lows and our highs, but like, it is simple, and if we study it enough, we will be able to like combat our lows. So I think it's so important,
and you end up falling in love with the process. It goes from being a chore at the start, and that's why we've done 21 days to create a habit. That 21 days is that magic number to form a habit. And you end up falling in love with it, and like we're already seeing it in this group that we have. What do we have now? Like 22 people.
There's 22 signed up, but I think
not everyone is contributing at this point. But I think we're going to get more as well. There's a lot of interest. it's not really about numbers anyway. It's about the impact that it's having. Exactly, and it's having huge impact. We've seen that already. And you start to fall in love with the process when you see the fruits of the work. And this is simple takeaways, bit of gratitude, some affirmations, breath work if you want to do it. And then you can build on that and find your own tools. But when you fall in love with the process and have it embedded in your habit patterns, and you realize that actually this isn't a choice, this is something I enjoy, and the reason I enjoy it is because I know it makes me feel better afterwards. So why wouldn't I prioritize it if it's going to take me 5 minutes or 10 minutes in the morning, you know? And when you know, I think having a little bit of science is helpful as well.
Yeah.
To have that cognitive or that mental level of understanding, and then we can start to drop lower into the theme that we're working on at the moment, that taha wairua, or the theme is intuition, but the pillar we're working on is taha wairua, our spirit. And so you drop in from that cognitive level into the spiritual level, and when you connect those dots, it just amplifies the power of it, and it amplifies your connection with the whole process. And it's been so good. You want to talk a little bit about our meeting yesterday, our Zoom?
Oh, it was just so sweet. And then the video that followed, I think basically what we're doing is 4 things that we're grateful for each day, 1 affirmation, and then you're setting a goal that you're going to complete for 21 days, and you're posting it in the group chat to hold ourselves accountable. And I think the beauty of that group chat is it holds this this space of just like love, care, and gratitude, and it's just flourishing every day. If you take the time to read it, you're just getting flooded with all this positivity,
all this gratitude. Yeah, and I look forward to reading everyone's gratitude.
Same, it's so nice,
so cool,
and it's just flooding you with that gratitude. And then the other thing that everyone signed up to is this weekly Zoom check-in, and some people can't make it, and that's all good.
They might watch the recording, and I know a lot of people have already watched the recording as well,
and they're connected with it. And what happened in this Zoom check-in was basically we introduced ourselves just to create that connectedness, that whakawhanaungatanga in the group, and then we said, what does Wairua mean to you? And we got pretty deep. Like, when we were talking about ourselves, we were talking about some of our biggest trials and tribulations and some of the real raw shit that we had been through. And we were just connecting in this virtual room and like having a shoulder for each other, and it was quite beautiful. And then Mum and Dad were on it too, and Dad attended his first breathwork session led by Adam,
which was real cool.
Amazing.
It's amazing from Dad, because Dad, just to put it into context, Dad is like your typical boomer, right?
He's a man's man. He's a Kiwi bloke.
Yeah. He doesn't stiff upper lip and all that sort of stuff. Like,
doesn't cry. I've never seen him cry, actually.
I've never seen him cry either. No. And he acknowledges himself. He doesn't really feel much emotion because he's been trained throughout his life. He's trained himself through what he's been through to repress that.
I'd love to get Dad on the podcast.
Yeah, hard. And so to see him just take this one step, well, the first step just being on the Zoom was awesome. And then to do breath work and actually to be enthusiastic about doing it and open-minded about it was awesome. I mean, I had a chat with him today about it. He's still definitely got some resistance. You don't go from being closed off to being fully open immediately like a switch, but his energy is completely different. Not just because of that Zoom, a few things that have happened between him and Mum as well, but just to see him showing up. And then Tony, our mate from Tauranga, who we've never met, came through Instagram. Shout out Tony, you're inspirational. Great dude. Honestly, like, yeah, he shared from his heart, his story. He inspired us with all the work that he's doing on himself, showing up for himself every day. He's going through some tough times at the moment, and our hearts go out to you, brother. We're here to support you
100%.
But he was inspirational to Dad, all of us, but Dad in particular. They're obviously Dad's quite a bit older than him, I'd say,
maybe 15 or so years older, but
but to see a man being vulnerable like that and to hear from Dad's perspective what Tony's been through and is working through, and how he's showing up for himself in a very like spiritually aligned way, and just being vulnerable made something twig with Dad where he was just like, wow, that is possible. And that's what he said to me. He's like, it's actually possible, I can do that. Whereas like he's seen us on this journey of healing and all the growth that we're connecting with, but he literally didn't think it was possible for him to do the same thing. He felt too set in his ways. He felt like he'd been living in this repressed way for his whole life, and that was his lot, and that was it, and nothing's going to change. But not just this, but that was a big catalyst for him to nod his head and say, I can do that too.
And honestly, I think there's people like Tony out there, and I think I'm on a similar wavelength and you, Adam, I think more in recent years, we are built different when it comes to emotion and feeling emotion. And there's certain dudes out there, and women, just genderless, there's no genders attached to it, but there's people out there that are just so numb to feeling and numb to emotion. And I think we're built different, and we're so connected to our emotion that sometimes we go through such low lows and such high highs. And I think if there's people out there listening to this and they're on the other side of the fence like Dad, I encourage you to just like step out of that comfort zone and connect with that emotion on whatever level you think you can. Like, start somewhere small and grow from there, because it's so powerful. And for us, we are sometimes on the other end of the spectrum where like it's so intense and it's hard, and we need to actually not feel sometimes, because it's fucking rough. Like, there's days that I can't sleep because I'm thinking about how other people feel because of what I said 10 years ago. Like, like that's intense. But yeah, and I think Tony is similar to that. I don't know him very well, but I get the feeling that he's similar to that in the sense that he's
I feel real connected to him after that vulnerability, and I think that's testament to everyone out there how powerful and how much of a superpower vulnerability is. I said it to you on our Zoom yesterday, and how much I respect the way you show up and you are vulnerable, and that's why people connect with you so much, and it's always been the case. You're empathetic, but you're also willing to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. And when you give that space by setting an example for other people, that brings out the same in them, and allows them to, you're holding space for them by being vulnerable in yourself. You're serving yourself in that you're letting the emotion flow, and that's what we need to do. That's what I think our culture has got so far away from now, is this healthy expression of all emotions, finding a way to healthily express. There's a healthy way to express anger. There's a healthy way to express anger, frustration, whatever it is. Every emotion needs to be expressed, because if it's not, and we're repressing it, it doesn't leave, it gets stuck in our body. And that's one thing that I've really woken up to with the trauma-informed certificate that I did for breathwork through the Centre for Healing in Australia, learning about these different forms of trauma and actually what it means from a somatic context, which means how the trauma is in our body. So it gets stored in our cells when we experience a traumatic event, whether it be violence, whether it be a car accident, losing a loved one. That emotion becomes trauma when it's unable to complete a loop. Every emotion works in loops. An emotion is energy in motion. So the energy gets stuck within our body. It forms thought patterns, it forms behavior patterns. And if it doesn't complete that loop, it's going to keep replaying. It's going to keep coming back up. And often when we least expect it, and it might be out of context, we'll be in a situation where we're reminded in some way of the instance of where we felt that trauma, reminded by a sight, a sound, a person that looks like another person, could be anything, and that emotion comes up again. And so what we actually need to do to release that trauma is to release it from ourselves, and we can do that through different forms of somatic therapy. It could be breath work, where you circulate that energy around your body. You build up life force energy within your body, and then circulate it around, and it clear these blockages from your nervous system, from your mind and your muscles, and allow those energetic loops to be completed. And this sounds super ethereal and spiritual, but it's absolutely powerful. I've felt it for myself, where you connect. You're going through a breathwork session. I do it by myself often, leading myself through them, and then do meditation. And you feel these emotions coming up, and you don't know why they're coming up. You feel like I'll be bawling my eyes out. I'll be lying on my deck, literally. It's often with the cleansing aspect, so a heart breath or a physiological sigh. After you've really energized your system, you start to move this energy around your body. You felt it before. These emotions start to come up. You're tearing up. Maybe you're feeling joy. Maybe you're feeling elated. But the next stage, when you start to relax, you can connect the dots between that emotion and where it came from. And I had the first conversation I've had with Dad about that whole, what we spoke about in our last podcast, about my connection to that rage response, which is one of the biggest things I've struggled with throughout my life. This red, raw rage that kept cropping up, and I didn't know where it came from. Had a chat with Dad about it today and told him the story of during this breathwork session, I connected with that time, which was a time that Dad and I had an altercation. I was at the age of about 13, and we got hidings, as many families do. But I was the oldest male, so I was bearing a bit of the brunt of it. And I got to a stage where, and he actually had a really interesting angle to it that opened my eyes when we talked about it today. Anyways, I felt like he was going to attack me. I was 13 years old. I felt like I was getting another hiding. It was coming. And in myself, I said, no, I don't want this anymore. I don't feel like I deserve this. And I fought back, and I actually struck him. And he was caught unawares. What he explained to me today, and Chris, this is the first time you're hearing this, is that he was actually coming to see if I was all good, because he knew something was going on, and that, like,
wow,
yeah,
far,
yeah. So,
that is so buzzy.
That hit me, but that was my trauma response. Acting in that moment.
I was scared for you too in that moment.
So you recall that as well?
I recall that. Yeah, I was bouncing on the tramp, and I saw him walk over to you, and I stopped jumping.
So that's your trauma response as well. So we had this initial reaction to his advancing towards me, that it's coming, Adam's going to get a hiding now. I say I'm going to fight back. Christian's thinking he's going to get a hiding.
I freeze.
Yeah, whatever.
Freeze, get ready to cry.
Yeah, and so I hit him. He was in shock. He stepped back. I can't remember exactly what happened after that, but the upshot was that he decided that wasn't working for us anymore. We weren't going to get hidings, none of us. So that was now off the table. So in my mind, at that time, I didn't make this connection, but through breathwork, I made this connection that worked. Wow. This rage worked. So it was a healthy
sovereign lie.
It protected me, but it did protect me. And in that moment, it's not the right thing to do at all, but it protected me, and that's all I was after. That was that inner child just trying to, like, save myself, from this trauma.
That makes so much sense now. That's why he was so hurt by it too.
I didn't realize that.
Because he was coming to see if you're okay. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dad's such a sweetheart, but we were so scared of him.
We were terrified of him, to be honest. We were terrified.
He's so sweet now. He's a different man now.
Yeah. And it was fucking normal. Like, a lot of people got it worse than us.
And he got it a lot worse than us.
A lot worse than us. So this is generational trauma. And this is, developmental trauma for me, generational trauma for us, with it being carried on. So, I know there's all these different labels, but it's important to understand these. And actually, like, it falls on us on our own healing journeys to learn these things, because the more, like, labels, people get iffy about labels. Like, why do I want a label? I don't want to know if I'm bipolar, whatever. These things actually are guideposts.
Some people it helps, but some people you don't need it. You don't need a label.
maybe you don't need a label. I think it's a helpful thing to have as a reference point. It doesn't define you. A label is just a label. I think it's like it gives you a framework and some foundation to work off, like the Te Whare Tapawha.
Yeah.
It's just a nice starting point. It doesn't mean that you're that way permanently. I think we can all change and we all grow. And if there are triggers and frailties that align with such and such a disorder that we can be aware of and gain tools to combat them, that's a positive. So just on that point of just doing research for ourselves, because our healing journey rests with us. We get support and we can be connected with other people by being vulnerable and having these conversations. But at the end of the day, in reality, all we have is ourselves. When it really comes down to it, So we've got to do the work. We've got to do the research, and I hope that, because through this stuff, the unseen part of it is that we're helping other people 100%, and we love helping other people, but we're getting a lot out of this. This is our healing journey as well. We're healing and trying to set an example for other people, and I learned so much off our breathers. Shout out to Bryn, Hamiora, Sylvia, all of the breathers with Ananda. We all come at it from different angles. We're all at different ages and stages in life, have different life experiences, have been through different things, and we just create these spaces like we have with this 21-day challenge where we can be open and share and connect, and there's so much power that comes when you just show up. Starts off with that one action of just being there, being present, and whether you're feeling like shit or feeling amazing, show up.
No excuses. That's the BBM motto, I think. It's the no excuses, and they just start. Whatever it is, no matter how small, just start. Whether it's like getting your clothes prepped for the next morning because you know that you're gonna go for that walk or that run, or to just get out the door. Set it up so it's as easy as possible for you to just do it. And I think,
and fall in love with the process. Like, everyone has different coping strategies, coping mechanisms, and those can sort of be charged terms. They can sort of sound negative, but they're not negative. They're basically strategies that we have to work through our shit and make sure we're showing up for each other. I think one of the first steps is understanding who you are and get to know yourself, not on a surface level, but actually deep down. Am I doing these things because I think it's the right thing to do and that's what other people do? Or am I doing this because it feels right? When I actually
intuition.
100% connect with that intuition, that wairua, and when you take action, whether it be with your self-care or things in relationships and work context, connect with that intuition first and feel if this is aligned with you. So we have our own daily practices. I obviously love breath work. Christian has his own things, you like your exercise,
cold showering, exercising, journaling. It's the gratitude journal now. And then the daily writing in my book, what I've had for happen each day. Just nice reflection.
So it happens that our strategies are pretty similar, and we're aligned with the same sort of stuff. But that doesn't mean it's going to be the same for you, anyone listening. You got to find what's right for you. Try everything with an open mind. That's what I think is the right approach to have. It's just give everything a try, because what do you have to lose? Most of these tools are free. Most of these tools don't take up much time. It doesn't take much time to journal a few lines a day, or
cold showers.
It sounds disgusting and
I just had one before this. I was ready to tap out, to be completely honest. I was so tired, and I was like, maybe not. Maybe I won't do this. Had a cold shower, and I was here. I was ready. And but on that note, I'm about ready to tap out again, I think. My brain is mentally gone. But do you want to keep going? I wanted to stop by 1:30.
Is there anything else you wanted to cover? I mean, I could keep going. I'm loving this. This is so good. But
I think we have a lot more to talk about, and
We can always come back to it.
we
like,
do
this
have
is-
two more memorable moments that we wanted to
I think we
mention.
went down another path. I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude.
I don't.
That would really put us in a different place. But it's funny. I'm happy to tell the stories if you want.
Maybe we do one more.
They're both sort of along the same vein, okay? So this is again some more wild times.
Can we also reflect, like just
On the serious side of it?
no? I think we can paint the picture of where we were at that time in terms of like.
Yep.
Some of you, if you go on to Good Vibes Only and you look at that pin post, the first one, it talks about the 26th of September, 2021.
Important, yes.
And, or was it 2020? 2020, shit. How am I getting my dates mixed up? Anyway, 2020, and it was probably the hardest point in my life. And it had roots back to these moments. And we were drinking 4 to 5 times per week.
Yeah.
We were smoking heavily. We were...
I wasn't smoking heavily at that time. But
I was smoking heavily, and I had just quit my job. I had just gone through a traumatic breakup, and at these points,
Bro, I think the night of the spit roast. No, it wasn't a spit roast, but the potential spit roast. Is that dead?
No. So
wasn't that? Didn't we meet up for a drink because you quit your job?
maybe.
I feel like it might have been. No,
because
that was when you lost the license. Yeah. Anyway,
But-
it was all like a haze
And
of
drugs
the same
as
shit.
well. Drugs were a big thing back at that time, especially
Actually,
for males.
yeah, in this
Anytime.
flat, and before that for you as well. In this
Yeah.
flat, there was So just to put it into context, this was the time when we were both single at the same time. So in our adult life together, we've been single for 6 months, and this was that 6 months. So I think it brought us super close.
Yeah.
But we were both in a dark place. I'd come out of a 7-year relationship. A few things had happened at the end of that relationship, which we're enjoying as well. Like, shout out to that partner, because I was in a really bad place and I did a lot of things that I wish I could take back, and that I feel super like I've forgiven myself now, but I feel a lot of remorse for the man that I was at times during that relationship. And this is bringing back some heavy memories. We lost a child a year before we broke up, which, like, we've been on the rocks for a while, but this was like this light at the end of the tunnel where we both got super excited, and only for it to come down like a ton of bricks, and I didn't process it at all. She was obviously distraught, so was I on the inside, but my coping mechanism, and again, talking about coping mechanisms, that something that can seem positive, like, and I think this is glorified in a big way, overworking, becoming like a workaholic. And I'm not going to say I was the most productive always, because when I was in commercial real estate, I just like did a lot of drinking and partying and distracting myself, but that was part of my getting away from this loss and not processing this loss. And what it meant was, so in my head, I'll just explain my thought pattern behind committing more to work and trying to work harder, was I needed to be the rock for my partner at the time, who was distraught and broken, because if we were both broken together, what use is that, right? So I'm fulfilling this role of what a male should be, this rock, this hard place, this solid person. But the way it was perceived was, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. We lost this baby. Like, I'm shattered inside. And among other things, it made us drift further apart. And it wasn't until everything came to a head at the end of the relationship that I actually really started to process this loss. And to this day, like, if anyone's been through a miscarriage. I can only imagine what it is, what it feels like as a woman to have that life within your body and then to lose the baby. We've got 5 sisters, and a couple of our sisters have been through miscarriages, and we've seen that trauma from there. And it was traumatic for my partner as well. The way it happened, in terms of actually like the physicality of the action of what happens when you have a miscarriage. But yeah, long story short, we processed it in completely different ways. I thought I was doing the right thing by being this supposed rock and hard place, but what she really needed was a bit of vulnerability, I think. And that's a lesson, like, it brings you closer, whether it be a relationship, in terms of you and your partner or a family member. Be vulnerable, be real about where you're at, because if you're not, you could well regret it in the long run. And I think you always do, because it's that whole thing of repression. It doesn't go away, finds a way out in a different way, in a different form. And for me, it came out in anger and frustration, because I thought, I'm doing the right thing, I'm trying to earn money for us, I'm trying to hold it down for you, you know. I'm not going to show that weakness, because I thought it was weakness. It was the way I was programmed. But really, if I had shown my emotion at the time, it would have brought us closer together. I'm not saying it would have fixed everything, probably not, but it would have gone a long way to helping both of us here, I think.
For sure.
Where were we going with that? We're trying to get back to the story.
We were trying to get to the stories, yeah.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, so I guess that both those stories or recaps kind of paint the picture of where we were at these points in time.
Yeah.
So although these are funny stories, they're not coming from a positive place.
No.
So it's not recommended behaviour
Not
at all.
It's just part of the journey.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think we've got to acknowledge all parts of the journey and to have a few lighthearted moments as well. But the more I think about it, the less lighthearted it feels. But it's, the stories have their own level of humour.
Are they funny?
I don't know, we'll see if they land.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the first one was, we spent, it was probably, I guess it was the whole of that 6 months, just bar hopping. So we became locals at Black Salt in New Zealand. Shout out Hardeep. Hardeep. And Hangar in Henderson. If you're a Westie, you know the Hangar.
Yeah.
It was filthy. It's sort of tidied itself up a bit.
Yeah.
But we got to know all of the staff there so well that we had a group chat on Messenger with all of them. Knew them, became mates with them fully. Went over to their flat, did names with them. Almost got probably all of them fired at different points for giving us so many. Definitely
got one of them fired, but we won't mention that.
No, we won't.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we spent a lot of time there, long story short, and drank a lot of alcohol, did some drugs. Spent a lot of money. I remember doing my tax return, and Hangar was my biggest expense by quite a long way. The other thing that I had as a vice, or just this stupid thing that always ended up happening, I was the ringleader, always ended up at strip clubs.
Yeah.
A lot of strip clubs.
And at this point in time, I was so poor because I had just quit my job, but I was still going to the strip club and I was still getting pissed and still smoking dories.
Well,
I don't know how I did it.
You supplied
for all of it. You supplied a lot of it, but I was on the Benny at that time too, and I would spend all my money on alcohol and diaries. It was probably mostly diaries though, because the Benny wasn't a lot. But
yeah. So that was painting the picture. So this particular night, we were at the Hangar. I think we both went there straight after work. I was probably there earlier than after work. Quite often I'd finish late.
I was at work at that point in time.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So maybe we started in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I don't know what day it was, but anyway, it's just standard probably a fucking Tuesday, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't, because it was a Friday. Because
Friday.
The particular wahine that we met that night was at a work function, and we were just having a good time with our mates from the Hangar who worked there, and also a few of the regulars. Shout out Gavin. Shout out Gavin with your big fat wheel bike and motorhome. My man, hopefully you're doing well. Where did he work? Burger Fuel.
Yeah, he worked at Burger Fuel and then he moved over to the States and then he
went to
back.
Dubai?
Yeah.
Wasn't he working in Dubai for Burger Fuel? I think he set up the restaurants or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, so we were there just getting shit faced, and as one thing led to another quite often, especially on a Friday or Saturday, where I say we, but it was really me, would start to gather up a group of people and try and get people keen to go to the strip.
I always didn't like it because I had no money, mainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, continue.
Yeah, so you get a few drinks in you, you have a skinful, and what could be a better place to be than a place with cheap drinks and titties?
Titties.
And so I'd always...
We would drink drive, though. That was another bad thing.
Bad.
Sorry, I keep bringing the mood down. But
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think I drove that night, eh?
Yeah.
That was bad. So the plan was we'd got a group together. One girl that we'd been chatting with, each of us sort of having turns chatting with her that night. And a few other people. So I think I was still in my work clothes and we wanted to get in proper attire, correct attire to go out to town. So a few people jumped in the car with us, came back. One of our flatmates at the time, this girl and us, came back to the flat for us to get changed. However, we got a little bit sidetracked and didn't end up going any further. We were all lit, so drunk. And one thing led to another. We've been joking I'm just going to say it. Okay. We've been joking all night about spit roasting and making innuendo about have you ever been with two brothers before, and honestly she was obviously lapping it up and loved it, and it was a lot of banter. I don't think either of us expected. I can actually definitely say neither of us expected anything to actually happen from it. Maybe not together, individually. And so what happened was we got back here and I ended up hooking up with her first. Got physical, and I had left space almost unintentionally for Christian to actually join in. And I'm not going to go into finer details, but anyways, we may have had interactions with the same female
at the same time
on that night. So it's a lot funny when we talk about it ourselves, but
I feel like
it's just the reality of...
Honestly, we make it funny because of how shit it was at that point in time and how bad we feel about it, because I think
there was no thought going into all of this. You're just sort of following your cock. You're following the rush and the next high, and I
think the other layer of that is that she had a partner, and I can't recall whether we knew it at the time, but
I think we knew.
We knew, and I think that adds to how shit of a situation it was. And how disconnected from everyone that we were.
I gotta tell you, the next morning, having to drop her off, seeing how guilty she felt, and also feeling guilty and shit myself, and just it was those hazy days after the debauchery that we get up to, that really sent shockwaves through your mental health. It's like you're riding these highs, but on the other side of every high is an even deeper low. And
that's what made me I hate weed. Everyone just thinks I'm a fucking stoner, but I hate weed, and I always did.
But you got dreads, bro. Why you got dreads if you don't like weed?
But even at that time, I hated weed. But one thing that was my kryptonite was fucking uppers. Anything that could get you up. And so MD, not so much coke in New Zealand, but I have done coke a few times, speed, and then hallucinogenics as well, acid, mushies, everything like that, nangs.
Nangs, oh my god,
nangs, we were bad on nangs.
Yeah.
And again, I do not recommend this stuff at all, but that was my kryptonite at that time. And Adam talks about the days after and the limbo in between drinking and the hangovers and feeling absolutely low. This is when I chased those highs the most, and when we would need to go out again, I would want to grab any bit of anything that I could. And especially when we went to town or when we were going to strip clubs, you would meet random people in the toilet and you would start up a chat and end up having some of their coke or some of their MD. Or
I feel like if there's one medicine in all these drugs, just to make a case for pink Porsches.
Porsches!
They've got ketamine
No!
in them. And I'm not going to say who I did it with, but I woke up the day after
It was
that.
me. No,
I woke up the day after that, for my first time in my life, seeing sounds. So we got high, like drunk first, and then had these, and like I hadn't done many uppers at that point. I don't think at all. Like not much at all. But the song that was playing was Tadao by Masego, and I could see the Tadao bouncing off the walls in sound waves. It was the trippiest thing ever. But the upshot of that is like, the next morning, this is a joke, obviously, this is tongue in cheek, but the next morning I woke up feeling elated and really happy. And maybe that's the ketamine in it. I know there's been a lot of medical trials about ketamine and depression. And I know I was depressed at that point in time. But yeah, we're doing Nangs as well. Yeah. Pink Porsche and Nangs. So again, I'm not recommending you try this to cure your depression at all. At all. That was tongue in cheek, and this is about a bit of a laugh as well, and just to be human, like we've come to a very different place in our life now, and I think a lot of the people that are hearing this, having seen my journey, if you've only known me for the last 6 months or a year, you're gonna think, holy shit, who was this dude?
Yeah,
it's not
even with me. I think people close to me know these stories, obviously, but anyone I work with now, and anyone like just in my new circle of people are probably like, what the actual fuck? But I think I don't regret. I mean,
you've got to own it. I mean, yeah, there's times that you're.
I wouldn't take any of it back because it would change who I am.
Yeah, and that's what we can't, right? So it's that whole thing of like depression being looking backwards in the rearview mirror and wanting to change things. We can't change those things. Anxiety is about thinking about the future and worrying about what might happen, ifs, ands, buts, all that stuff. But
happiness is right now.
The only thing we can control is what's in front of us right now. So it's the present moment where we can make decisions in the now to connect with whatever makes us happy.
I guess while we're here, do you want to wrap it off with the last story?
Do I? Yeah, I think I have to. Don't I? I can't not. So again, this was around the same time in that 6 months of debauchery where I was here in this flat.
This isn't as bad, but...
And it was another one of those yarns where we'd been joking for a long time about spit roasts and brothers and stuff. And we ended up in the same bed with no intention for anything to happen. Although I was probably wanting my end off maybe.
I think you were, yeah. Considering what transpired.
Anyway, one thing led to another, and the acknowledgement or the thought that was that Christian was asleep.
Yeah. And
that he wasn't aware of what was happening. So something was happening between the two other occupants of the bed, namely me and someone else. And Christian was aware of what was happening, so he decided to reach over and
may or may not have grabbed
my dick, and that obviously ended everything.
Well, because imagine, right, we've been up quite late. I think it was during lockdowns.
I think it was.
I think it was after the second lockdown.
Hey, we all did fucked up shit during lockdown.
And yeah, I'd moved back home, and we were lit as gone to bed for some reason. I don't know why, but we went into the same bed as her, and she like assumed that I was asleep and didn't know what was going on, but I could feel the bed moving, I could hear the sounds. I'm not dumb. I'm just like, and so instantly in my head I was like, how do I stop this / make something funny out of this? And so I just like reached over and like grabbed it and then just cracked up. And yeah, wow. That was a great story on Nights Out too. I think everyone thought that I was a bit
just you just got to own these things, right? I mean, it happened. It's a moment in time.
It was
We've
funny.
told it
It's
so many-
still funny.
It doesn't even feel like a memory at this point. It feels like a yarn, but
Yeah.
I know it happened, and and it's just, it makes me like sort of fret a little bit about what happened that I don't remember.
Yeah.
Not that night, but just in general.
What happened that I don't remember?
Yeah. Some
On
weird time.
things that have happened that I don't remember, there's a lot of them. It scares me, and it used to.
Well, the times you like end up home and you don't know how
my
you've got
gosh.
home,
Or
like
driven.
yeah, bro. I like.
You see your car outside.
Well, my car's been like I've been bar hopping in Ponsonby, and I know I've driven there and parked my car, but got so fucked up and left my car there. At least I left it there.
Yeah.
Got Ubered home, but couldn't find my car because
Yeah.
it was so fucked up and had no idea where my night had taken
So
me.
bad.
So many instances like that.
Or getting home, like not knowing how you got home, waking up in the morning and be like, holy fuck. Like scared. So anxious and just down on life because you're like, how did I get here? What happened last night? It's, yeah, honestly.
I remember driving home in Delilah. I had a Mazda 323, this hatchback, which was like my first proper car. I had an Integra before that, which shat itself in like 3 months and was completely rooted. Had to sell it for parts. But my second car was that 323, and I remember vividly having all the boys and one of their partners in the car, full, coming back from Lennon in town, well, Lennon and other places, car park, remember car park?
No.
Car park, Lennon, a few other places, shit faced, and being like, yeah, I'm all good, I can drive, and like not even being like seeing double, like seeing multiple lanes when there was one, having the music up and singing, and I remember like the partner of one of the boys in the back, I remember her being scared, and then going to like Macca's and buying the old 20 cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
And getting home, and luckily nothing ever happened, no crashes, nothing, like never got pulled over or lost my license for drinking, but just got lucky. Like it could have easily been completely different, where that car could have crashed and all the passengers, I think we even overloaded, all the passengers could have been gone, and that's like my best mates. So these are all like strong, vivid lessons, and although like we're talking about them with tongue in cheek and making a bit of a funny about them, there's a very serious element to it as well.
And I think a key difference in the two of us now is being more connected to our true selves. Because if we were connected to ourselves back then, we would never have done this shit. And we would never have done the stupid shit that we're talking about right now. Because like people who know me now and know you now would know that you would never put your best mates in danger. You would never put your family members in danger. But we're doing it all the fucking time.
Without a care in the world, eh? And I think there's like, let's be real for a moment. I think there's certainly an element where you have to live and learn. Like it's easy for us to say, oh no, you shouldn't do that. But going back, if someone told us that what we're telling ourselves now, we would have just been like, no, that doesn't apply to us.
Everyone did.
Yeah, and you're just like, it doesn't apply to us. So there's a certain element, and let's acknowledge that, because maybe there's people listening that are in that space that like that doesn't apply to me. Like you feel bulletproof. It sounds cliche, but you do feel bulletproof. Like, nah, I'll be alright. I'll make it through this. And you're living in this duality. But what you were saying about this whole rounding it off, what was the point you were making about
connecting with your inner self?
Connecting with your inner self. Oh, and realizing that you don't need alcohol, you don't need drugs, and you don't need these uppers, whatever it is, to chemically enhance your mood. You actually don't need that shit. Like, we now spend a lot of time around family and friends who are drinking, and what I found is I'm actually still nuts, you know? I'm actually still
having a good time.
Still having a good time, and like still pretty loose without any alcohol in my system. I have those Heineken Zeros or nothing, and still have an awesome laugh with the boys, have a great time, let loose, feel like the inhibitions are gone and that, and just like be stupid and act like we're at high school again obviously not with the violence, and it's just like more predictable, more fulfilling, more wholesome, and you don't get a hangover the next day, and you don't feel bad about something you said or something you did. You can actually look out for your mates and be there for like, be there for them if they get too lit. Be the sober driver. I was able to be the sober driver for one of my mates' birthdays recently, Brett's birthday, and went to town with all the boys, and had a really good time, and didn't feel like an outsider. I don't know, there's always comments from people here and there, they're like, why aren't you drinking, why don't you drink? But I've actually found that most people are understanding, and I think there's a lot more acceptance around this now as well. So just realizing that you don't have to have all those things, that you can still have a really good time. And maybe if you connect with breath work, learn to get high on your own supply, which I do often. And it really does pick up your mood and gives you those endorphin releases and dopamine hits. And it sounds weird and it sounds boring, saying that you can get a dopamine hit from just gratitude and journaling, but you really do. And it's consistent, and it builds over time. So it's obviously not the same dopamine hit. It's not like a rush, like bing, and like your energy's up, but you can actually feel. I don't necessarily get it from gratitude and journaling. I think that's a more subtle thing. But for breath work, definitely I can sometimes feel like I'm pinging. Like sometimes you have to dial it back. You have to be careful with the activating techniques you use, because if I just did activating in the morning and I did, depends on the day. Sometimes I do 10 minutes. Sometimes like the Ananda Daily Bliss Hit, look that up on YouTube if you haven't already. Sometimes I do half an hour. Sometimes I do an hour. If I did half an hour of activating breath work, that would be like I'm on coke. That would be like I've had 6 coffees and I'm walking. And it feels good for a while, but what happens with energy, if you're going up, you crash. And the same thing applies to breathwork. So that's why we go through this full wave and cleanse and then relax at the end, so we can solidify and store that energy in a more healthy way. Always connecting shit back to breathwork, but it's true.
Yeah, it's great. And that's something I've connected with more so recently is breathwork, and I think I said in the podcast last week, it's something I think was always missing. I guess going away from high school and having that spiritual element of like religion and stuff like that, I was missing that. So I didn't have that part of my body to hold me strong and build the platform. But yeah, I think it is a beautiful thing. So I encourage each and every one of you to try it. Search up Adam's videos and give it a look and a research. Follow him on Instagram and just like connect with it, because it's a beautiful practice. Like you said, you get high on your own supply. But yeah, I guess I would like to wrap it up there with a tight bow and just say thank you, bro, for connecting here and being with me, creating this space where we can, unravel some of our past and hopefully leave some of it in the past. Because I don't want to talk about jokes. But yeah, thank you for being you. Thank you for being the brother that you are, the person that you are. The huge amounts of growth that you've been through recently is inspiring. And yeah, I'm just thankful for you and the person that you are. And I think I don't say it enough, and you say it a lot more, but I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, bro.
I love you, and thank you.
I love you too, bro. And like I said on our Zoom yesterday, I am inspired by you and the way you show up every day, especially with this vulnerability. I know I've said it, but I'm going to say it again. Showing up with your vulnerability, which is a superpower, and changing people's lives with good vibes only. The passion you put into things like the merch and the thought behind it, this Depresso Espresso, everything links back to your own healing journey, and that healing and that vulnerability that you're committed to is overflowing to this tribe that's growing every day. And it's so heartwarming to me to be able to do this with you and walk this path on this journey together in our different ways and from our different angles. But I've been inspired by you, and every day I see you getting better and better. And yeah, we still both have moments, hey, there's no finish line to this stuff, and we're far from the finished product, and that's a good thing. But yeah, keep showing up like you are, because you're changing the world, bro. Straight up.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that.
All good. Should we kiss?
We'll wrap it up there before we start hooking up. No joke. But yeah, cheers everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It means the world to me and to us. It's you guys sitting there at home watching this, wherever you are, that makes Good Vibes Only what it is. So please connect with this, react to this, comment on this, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share it on your socials, because that's the stuff that helps us grow. Spread this message. Our vision is to normalize speaking up, reaching out, and asking for help. So if the only thing you can do is connect with the person next to you, do that. Reach out to that person and speak up and change the world. It's one little thing at a time. Good Vibes Only is a movement, and it's all about just doing exactly that. Picking up the phone, having a call, or just reaching out to the person next to you. Thanks again for tuning in. We appreciate you. We love you a lot, and can't wait for the next podcast.
Much love, fam. Namaste.
You play a war in my mind. Well, some things they never change. For my own peace of mind.